Hello, how's everybody again? I want to continue on with our recordings, and this time we're looking at chapter 5, session 5, which is about competitive rivalries and competition. So if we go back to slide number 2, we can see this is part of the strategy formulation section of that slide, and you'll see it's number 5 in the middle of the top row. Now if you start looking at competitors from a competitive dynamics point of view, you have competitors engaged in competitive rivalry. So they are competing with all rivals in their same sector, in the same marketplace. And they're trying to gain an advantageous market position over their competitors. And they do this through competitive behavior, competitive actions, competitive responses to what you're doing. So the overall picture is competitive dynamics. This is competitive actions and responses taken by all firms competing in a marketplace. So there's a combination of factors that will impact on that. So if you look at the definition of some of these terms, we have competitive rivalry is the ongoing set of competitive actions and competitive responses occurring between rivals as they compete against each other for an advantageous market position. Competitive behavior is a set of competitive actions and competitive responses that the firm takes to build or defend its competitive advantages and to improve its market position. Firms competing against each other in several products or geographic markets are in multi-market competition. And lastly, we have competitive behavior. This is the total set of actions and responses taken by all firms competing within a market. It's called competitive dynamics. So strategic competitiveness is examples are the use of new technologies. For example, Amazon has used new technology in recent times. Diversifying the product line, Barnes & Noble, a book company, a bookseller in the US, has now branched into selling music as one of its product lines. It also has incorporated a coffee shop within the Barnes & Noble store so that people can come in, pick up a book, browse around, and may or may not purchase the book, but they'll have a cup of coffee and have a look at what's going on in the shop. So this is an example. Shifting product emphasis. U-Haul is a moving company in the US, and they're focused on accessory sales. So they're looking at how can we sell other things that movers will need, such as trolleys and so on, to move furniture from point A to point B. Then you've got consolidation is another factor, such as Hewlett-Packard and Compaq companies have joined forces. And then you have Sears and Land's End have combined their online selling with physical stores. So here we're moving from low-level technology in bricks and mortar stores into high-level technology where we're doing online sales. So these are some of the ways that competitive strategies can be developed and utilized by a company to be more effective, gain market share, and deal with its rivalries. Now, if you look at slide number 9, a model of competitive rivalry. Here we have competitive analysis, market commonality, resource similarity, etc. And they drive behaviors such as awareness raising, motivation, and the ability to compete effectively. And they in turn are involved in inter-firm rivalry between companies. So the likelihood of attack, first mover incentives, organizational size and quality, etc. become important. And the likelihood of a response to those actions are the type of competitive actions, the reputation, your market dependence, etc. that impact upon your company as you compete with others in this marketplace. And the outcomes are a better market position and financial performance for yourself. So this is what you're trying to achieve at all times using competitive rivalry. Now, a model of competitive rivalry is where you have companies that are competing, but you need to do an analysis of what their competition is all about. What's their terms of market commonality? What resource similarity do they have with your company? What are some of the effects or drivers of the competition, competitive behavior that they're engaged in, and how does that reflect on how your company is engaged in competitive actions? Are there attacks and responses to what you're doing, to what actions you have taken, to what initiatives that you have introduced into your company in order to deal with the competition? And feedback from competitive outcomes will affect future competitive dynamics. So obviously you need to keep track of what are you doing, how it's being impacting your company, what impact it's having on the marketplace, what response is the marketplace giving you, and how are they reacting to you as a company. So you're never doing competition in isolation, you're always doing it in relation to the marketplace and lots of other rivalry companies. Now, drivers of competitive actions and responses, one is your understanding or awareness of what's going on in the marketplace. How up to date are you with your market intelligence? How well informed are you about what's happening in the marketplace? What are the trends going on? What's emerging as a new type of competition? What new kind of products or services are being offered by your competitors, etc. And then how common are you in relation to other companies that are your rivals? And what motivation do you have as an incentive to try and continue to compete effectively in that marketplace? And then resource dissimilarity. What's different about what you're doing and what they're doing? What are their resources like compared to what your resources are like? So if we go back to what we did earlier in the last session, we talked about what's valuable, what's rare, what's difficult to imitate, and what's not substitutable. Those are four terms that you need to look at in terms of your similarity or dissimilarity with your competitors. And then what's your ability to respond flexibly? What's your ability to respond quickly to your rivals' actions and so on? Now, if we look at some examples of this kind of competition, we look at two companies. One is Walmart, and the other is various other companies that are competing with Walmart. Now, Walmart, for many years, it had 25% of its products were coming from abroad, but cannot do so across much more because of its cost structure is higher than in Walmart. So this is where Target and Walmart are effectively facing off against each other. The reality is, however, that Walmart for many years had a policy where its strategy was try to have a Walmart shop within 50-mile radius of every home in America. So as long as they're within 50 miles, people will drive that distance to go shopping in Walmart because of the wide range of products that Walmart sells. And also the size of their stores and the fact that you can have a meal at the store, etc. There's lots of advantages in going to a Walmart shop. Target doesn't have that. Target is a much smaller venture. It doesn't have the outreach that Walmart has. And it's competing in a smaller range of products. In recent times, Walmart has moved away from its strategy of building more stores within 50-mile radius of all homes in America. And instead it has invested greatly in virtual shopping, to online shopping. And so now the big investment in Walmart over the last 2 or 3 years has been in its IT infrastructure to enable it to compete effectively in the IT space. And so what they have done in effect is, instead of building a store within 50-mile radius of a home in America, it's now bringing Walmart into the kitchen of that home in America. So the IT technology has brought shopping to your kitchen, to your living room, to your bedroom, so you don't have to even drive 50 miles, you don't have to drive anywhere. You can just do your shopping online and everything will be delivered to your home. So this is a whole new venture for Walmart, and it's helping to maintain their competitive position within the marketplace in the US, and so they're still very strong. It also means that they can compete on price because one of their policies has always been low price every day. Now, when you're looking at moving into a new marketplace, you have to look at what's the first mover advantages or disadvantages. If you're a first mover, then you are first into the marketplace. Now, there is a selling involved in that because you have to raise people's awareness about the kind of product range you have. An example, Kentucky Fried Chicken is generally a first mover of fast food restaurants into markets outside the US. So they're first into Thailand, or first into China, first into Japan, etc. And McDonald's comes later. But Kentucky Fried Chicken establishes a baseline for itself in each marketplace. And so they earn above average returns until competitors respond effectively. So once you've established yourself in the marketplace, as they have done in so many places, other companies like Burger King, Pizza Hut, and McDonald's and so on, Wendy's, burgers, they all come in after Kentucky Fried Chicken. And they try to establish some business within the same space that the Kentucky Fried Chicken has established. But they have to gain customer loyalty, and that's creating a barrier to entry by competition. So as Kentucky Fried Chicken establishes itself, it tries to create barriers to other fast food restaurants coming into their market space. And they do this to try to maintain and gain market share. There's also dangers and disadvantages in being a first mover because it's difficult to accurately estimate the returns that will be earned by introducing a new product or a new service into a marketplace. And the first mover cost to develop a product innovation can be substantial, reducing the slack available to support further innovation. A lack of product acceptance may be a factor as well. If people don't like the particular product, you may have done a huge disservice to your company because you've invested greatly and you're not getting the returns on your investment that you anticipated. The second mover, on the other hand, has the advantage of coming in on the coattails of the first movers. So they learn many of the lessons that the first movers have had to learn, but they do it much more cheaply because they don't have to do all the investment that the first mover had to do. So they can avoid the mistakes and the huge spending that the first movers have had to engage in. And they also have time to develop processes and technologies that are more efficient than those of the first mover. They can respond more quickly and more successfully using innovation and so on as they go into the marketplace as a second mover. And they can rapidly and meaningfully interpret market feedback and respond quickly, yet successfully, to the first mover's successful innovations. So we don't have to stay in line with the first mover's actions and developments. We can be much more innovative and creative, basing our lessons on those that were learned from the first mover's activities. Now, examples of second movers, New Balance as a shoe in the area of runners and sports shoes and so on. You have Nike, you have Reebok, you have Adidas, you've got lots of different companies involved in this space. But New Balance has managed to maintain its competitive advantage over Nike. Not because it's faster in developing new products, because in fact it's much slower. New Balance takes roughly 17 weeks to develop a new product, whereas Nike and Reebok and so on can do that in 6 weeks. But where New Balance is maintaining its competitive position is because it's focusing on the baby boomers. So its average age group of its population of customers is about 42 years old, whereas Reebok and Nike's, their average age of customers is 25 and 33 respectively. So they're dealing with a younger population, but the New Balance are dealing with an older population who have different sized feet, and they have wider feet than the younger ones. And so they're constantly bringing out shoes with many varying sizes of width of the shoe, and that's managed to capture a niche subsection of the market from Nike and Reebok, etc. So even though they're second movers, they have maintained a very effective position. Now, organizational size is also a factor. If you're a large company, you can take a lot of initiatives and you can try out different things. However, it's expensive. If you're a small company, you can be more agile and flexible, but you may not have the cash for investment in new initiatives and new innovations and so on. So there are advantages and disadvantages to large versus small size. Then there's the question of quality. Quality is something that every company needs to be focused on, because the customer is focused on quality all the time. As I pointed out in the last session, the three things that every customer is looking for is price, accessibility, and quality, and thirdly, variety. And in the case of quality, where you have quality meeting or exceeding customers' expectations in products or services, then you're going to maintain your position in the marketplace. And as you do that, you will continue to be profitable. You will get a higher, above average return on investments, and you will remain competitive, two of the criteria that every company has to fulfill in order to maintain a position in the marketplace. Thank you.